Singapore, Southeast Asia's richest country. GDP per capita is around $90,000. Financial powerhouse. Untouchable for decades. But something's shifting across the causeway in Malaysia. Economists are recalibrating projections because Malaysia is building an economy growing faster, attracting bigger investments, and positioning itself as the region's next major force. The question isn't whether Malaysia can match Singapore's per capita wealth. That's not happening soon. The real question is whether Malaysia is building something Singapore can't replicate. Malaysia's GDP hit $422 billion compared to Singapore's $547 billion. But check the momentum. Malaysia grew 5.2% in the third quarter of 2025. Full year came in at 5.1%. For 2026, the IMF projects 4.3% growth in TREC zone. Singapore's growth? More conservative. Malaysia isn't just growing. It's accelerating while regional economies brace for global headwinds. Before we continue, I need your help. Some people think breaking down economic data is too boring for viewers. That you're just here for quick takes. But I believe you're smarter than that. You understand economic shifts today determine opportunities tomorrow. So if you're here for substance and real numbers, smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. Show them depth matters. Assalamu alaikum. GDP per capita. Singapore wins at $90,674 versus Malaysia's $11,867. Massive gap. But economic transformation isn't measured by current position. It's measured by momentum and what's being built underneath. On those metrics, Malaysia is constructing something remarkable. Data centers. Malaysia approved 143 data center projects between 2021 and June 2025, worth 144.4 billion ringgit, roughly $36 billion. Budget your trip. Microsoft, Google, ByteDance, AWS. All are building massive facilities. Johor alone approved 42 projects worth $39 billion. Singapore hit land and power constraints. Companies expanding found Johor offering lower costs, available land, and direct connectivity. By 2030, Johor is expected to account for 60% of Malaysia's total data center capacity. Semiconductors. Malaysia announced its national semiconductor strategy, targeting 60,000 trained engineers. Nvidia is constructing a $4.3 billion AI data center. Intel and Infineon are expanding. Malaysia secured a $250 million agreement with AIM Holdings. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim targets over $100 billion in semiconductor investments. Malaysia already handles 13% of global semiconductor testing and packaging. The strategy aims to move Malaysia up the value chain into design and advanced manufacturing. Tourism. Malaysia welcomed 10.1 million international visitors in just the first quarter of 2025. Full-year tourism spending hit 161.9 billion ringgit, about $40 billion. Visit Malaysia Year 2026 targets 47 million foreign visitors with projected receipts of 270 billion ringgit. The rapid transit system linking Johor Bahru and Singapore launches in December 2026, carrying 10,000 passengers hourly each direction. Malaysia extended visa-free access for Indian nationals and granted Chinese tourists 5-year exemptions. Trade agreements. The Malaysia-US Agreement on Reciprocal Trade allows over 1,700 categories of Malaysian goods to enter the US duty-free. The electrical and electronics sector benefits directly. Malaysia is now a trusted supply chain partner for strategic and high-tech products. Budget allocations. Malaysia allocated 2 billion ringgit for building a sovereign AI cloud. Total commitment for AI research and development reaches 5.9 billion ringgit, approximately $1.44 billion. In the first half of 2025, Malaysia recorded 190.3 billion ringgit in approved investments, an 18.7% increase year-over-year. Now Singapore's advantages. Economic Freedom Index of 84.1, ranking first globally. Malaysia scores 67.1, ranking 50th. Singapore runs consistent budget surpluses. Malaysia posted deficits averaging 2.07% of GDP. Singapore's financial services sector is unmatched. Banking, insurance, wealth management. Malaysia's financial sector is growing, but nowhere near Singapore's sophistication. Singapore's per capita income reflects decades of strategic positioning. Quality of life metrics favor Singapore across healthcare, education, and public services. Here's where it gets interesting. Singapore's economy depends heavily on mature services sectors. Growth is steady but slower. Malaysia's economy is diversifying rapidly. Manufacturing, technology, tourism, and agriculture. Multiple engines driving growth. Singapore faces physical constraints. Land is scarce. Power is imported. Malaysia has land, natural resources, and room to grow both horizontally and vertically. Singapore's population is aging with low birth rates. Malaysia's population is younger, with the demographic dividend intact. More workers entering the economy means more consumption and production. Companies seeking lower costs without sacrificing quality look to Malaysia. Johor, Penang, Kuala Lumpur. Talent costs less. Operations are cheaper. Proximity to Singapore remains close for collaboration. Energy security. Singapore imports almost all energy. Malaysia produces oil and gas domestically. Renewable investments under the National Energy Transition Roadmap expand capacity. Data centers need massive power. Malaysia provides it. Singapore struggles. Geopolitics. US-China tensions create supply chain diversification opportunities. Malaysia benefits from neutrality, maintaining good relationships with both superpowers. The semiconductor industry is geopolitical. Malaysia positions itself as a trusted partner for both US and Chinese firms, capturing investments that others cannot. Let's be clear. Malaysia won't surpass Singapore in GDP per capita in 2026, 2030, or probably 2040. The gap is too large. But Malaysia is building an economy with faster growth rates, larger scale opportunities, and structural advantages Singapore cannot easily replicate. Malaysia's $422 billion GDP could surpass Singapore's $547 billion total economy within years if trajectories hold. Not per capita. Total size. More importantly, Malaysia creates opportunities that Singapore's high costs prevent. Manufacturing, assembly, testing, and data centers. These industries need space and affordable power. Singapore cannot offer that at scale. Malaysia can. That positioning attracts the investments driving Malaysia's growth. Brain drain remains Malaysia's challenge. Talented Malaysians move to Singapore for higher salaries. Reversing that requires creating high-value jobs domestically. The semiconductor training program aims for 60,000 engineers, but retaining them requires competitive compensation. Corruption and governance issues persist. Singapore's zero-tolerance policy creates trust. Malaysia must improve governance for sustained investor confidence. Bottom line. Singapore remains Southeast Asia's wealthiest country by far. Malaysia isn't catching up in per capita wealth anytime soon. But Malaysia is building an economy with momentum Singapore cannot match. Faster growth. Larger scale. Structural advantages in land, energy, and demographics. The investments flooding Malaysia, 144 billion ringgit in data centers, $100 billion targeted for semiconductors, 270 billion ringgit projected from tourism, these are long-term transformations. The race isn't about Malaysia replacing Singapore. It's about Malaysia creating its own category. A large-scale, diversified, rapidly industrializing economy that complements Singapore rather than competes directly. Companies choose Singapore for finance and high-value services. They chose Malaysia for manufacturing, data infrastructure, and scalable operations. Both benefit. The region benefits. 2026 marks a milestone. Malaysia's growth remains robust at 4.3 to 4.5%. Investments continue flowing. Infrastructure advances. The Johor-Singapore transit launches. Semiconductor projects ramp up. Data centers come online. Singapore maintains its position as a financial capital, but the narrative shifts. Malaysia is no longer just Singapore's neighbor. It's becoming Singapore's complement and in some sectors, its competitor. Will Malaysia become Southeast Asia's richest country in 2026? No. Not in per capita terms. Singapore holds that crown firmly. But will Malaysia become the economic story of 2026? The country attracting the most investment, posting the highest growth, building the infrastructure defining Southeast Asia's next decade? The data says yes. The investments prove it. The momentum is undeniable. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective, smash that like button and hit subscribe. More content like this is coming. Real data. Honest comparisons. Analysis that respects your intelligence. Drop a comment telling me which economic comparison you want next. Malaysia versus Thailand? Indonesia versus Vietnam? Let me know. See you in the next one.